Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. 2 Belarusian helicopters flew over Białowieża yesterday before returning back to Belarusian airspace. The incident was discussed last night at a meeting of the Security Committee. Polish Defence Minister Mariusz Błaszczak has ordered an increase in the number of troops on the eastern border. NATO is in close contact with the Polish authorities and will continue to do whatever is necessary to ensure the safety of the allies.
Initially, the Polish military reported that the helicopters had not violated Polish airspace. However, in an evening statement, the Ministry of Defense reported that there had been a border crossing. The border crossing took place in the Białowieża region at a very low altitude, making it difficult to detect by radar systems. Therefore, in a statement this morning, the Armed Forces Operational Command said that Polish radar systems had not recorded a violation of Polish airspace. The ministry also reported that the Belarusian side had previously informed Poland about the exercises taking place. It is no coincidence that they are doing these exercises near the border. According to international agreements, they are informing us about it because it is their duty, so they are doing it. Polish airspace was most likely violated by 2 helicopters, an Mi-8 and Mi-24. The latter is a heavy combat helicopter developed by the Russians back in Soviet times. This is one big mess. We spend a lot of money, and meanwhile we don't get a proper defense of our borders. As a result of the situation, the Foreign Ministry summoned the Belarusian charge d'affaires yesterday, and Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak ordered an increase in the number of soldiers on the border and additional combat helicopters to be sent there. We of course informed about the incident, and we also informed NATO headquarters. Yesterday, a meeting of the Security Committee was held. Certain dispositions of the armed forces were issued. The opposition will seek the convening of a National Security Council by President Andrzej Duda. It might also be worth convening a closed session of the National Defense Committee and the Special Services Committee to hear from Minister Błaszczak about the security of the Polish-Belarusian border. Let's remember that all matters that concern our defense are at our fingertips as far as opposition MEPs are concerned, because we can talk about it in secret meetings of the National Defense Committee, whereas it turns out, when important matters are discussed, there aren't many questions asked. The violation of Polish airspace has received an international response, with The Guardian, Reuters, Deutsche Welle, and the American Institute for War Studies all reporting on the incident.
Nothing to announce right now in terms of any additional force posture changes in NATO. When it comes to Polish defense, I'd refer you to the Polish Ministry of Defense, other than to say that, again, we will continue to take NATO's security very seriously. And we will continue to work together with our NATO allies to ensure that every square inch of NATO remains safe.
A Pentagon spokesman also addressed the incident. Yesterday, the Belarusian Defense Ministry stated that its military helicopters did not violate Polish airspace. The regime's propaganda channel is operating at top speed. Poland has recently gone into a frenzy, saying that some troops are reportedly coming here, as many as 100 people. No Wagner troops numbering 100 people have moved here, and if they did, it was only to increase the experience and skills of the Belarusian brigades stationed in Brest and Grodno. They do whatever they want, and this is a broader problem, for the reason that they see no problem at all in breaking the law every day. Belarusian helicopters straying across the Polish border is not the first such provocation by Belarus in recent times. Last week, Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki announced that more than 100 mercenaries from the Wagner Group had moved into the vicinity of the Suwałki Gap.
The president of the Rota Association of the March for Independence, Robert Bankiewicz, gave an interview to Telewizja Republiki yesterday at the Warsaw Uprising Museum. Shortly after the interview, the museum, which talks a lot about uniting Poles, issued a statement saying that Mr. Bankiewicz had not been invited to the museum. Robert Bankiewicz is also an organiser of the Warsaw Uprising March and was invited on this very topic. The conversation also touched on the anniversary of the uprising itself. We declare that the Warsaw Uprising Museum did not invite Robert Bankiewicz to the museum. We are surprised and appalled by his presence on the 1st of August at our institution and by his publicising this fact. In connection with Robert Bankiewicz's aggressive behaviour towards Warsaw insurgents, we emphasise that we condemn any disrespect and aggression towards veterans. Caring for the memory of the uprising and the good name of its participants is part of the mission of the Warsaw Uprising Museum. I would like to remind you that I am the organiser of 2 marches at which the insurgents of Warsaw are special guests. Their presence is the main point of the programme. Therefore, any accusations of my alleged aggression towards them I consider unfounded.
Narzucanie tego typu narracji jest po prostu skrajnie nieprawdziwe.
After the statement of the Warsaw Uprising Museum, many comments appeared on the internet. The uprising broke out to give people freedom, and all those who love Poland were invited to participate. Segregation based on race or views is the domain of the Nazis. Anyone who denies entry to the Uprising Museum to people because of their views is siding with the Nazis. I have been to the Warsaw Uprising Museum as well, so just to be on the safe side, I would like to inform you that I was not invited there by the management of the institution. I came on my own, without the knowledge of the employees, so I asked Mr. Trzaskowski not to punish them for this. This type of statement should never have been published. Mr. Rafał Trzaskowski, are there now any prescription lists at the Warsaw Uprising Museum? If this goes on, only people who fill out a special questionnaire where they reveal their political views will be allowed to enter the Warsaw Uprising Museum. The Warsaw Uprising Museum is the organiser of the Freedom Unites campaign, which aims to build historical and patriotic awareness. Museum authorities in interviews with us yesterday stressed that the 1st of August is an anniversary that unites all Poles, regardless of views. Meanwhile, the post on Robert Bankiewicz completely contradicts this. This is an example of eliminating people who, for some reason, do not agree with each other in the public debate, no matter what they say and no matter who they are. As Telewizja Republika, we are against this cancelled culture. We are against excluding people from political discussion. The Warsaw Uprising Museum was established on the 60th anniversary of the uprising. It was initiated by the late President Lech Kaczynski, a former mayor of Warsaw. During the opening ceremony of the institution, he spoke about the pursuit of freedom that united all those who fought in the uprising, regardless of their views. The meaning of today's event, however, is broader than what can be said by referring to the dictionary definition of a museum. It is embedded in our history, and not only in the history of World War II, but also earlier and later history. It is our collective responsibility to reflect on this meaning, to show it, to give this moment and to give all that the museum will do a solemn character. It is clear that the memory of these events should be our way of unity, not a subject of dispute. The Warsaw Uprising Museum is financed from the budget of the city of Warsaw. Opposition circles, broadly understood, have diagnosed that only by playing on emotions can anything be won, and that it is impossible to compete on programmes. Consequently, these conflicts are being stirred up. On the 31st of July, Robert Bankiewicz filed a notice to the prosecutor's office about the possibility of a crime committed by Rafał Trzaskowski. The issue is an attempt to block the Warsaw Uprising March, despite a decision by Mazovian governor Konstanty Radziwiłł, who gave the march the status of a cyclical event. Bankiewicz is somehow sectioned out by the Warsaw authorities, for example, Rafał Trzaskowski, who blocked the Warsaw Uprising March. He tried various legal tricks to block that march. Robert Bankiewicz is simply inconvenient to the current government and is being patched up as some kind of radical or even fascist, and unfortunately the museum's statement falls into this to some extent. Donald Trump allegedly illegally sought to influence the results of the 2020 presidential election. A grand jury in Washington, D.C. has indicted the former US president on 4 charges, accusing him of acting to reverse the outcome of the election he lost. Earlier, Trump heard charges in connection with the unauthorized storage of classified documents.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. The men and women of law enforcement who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th are heroes. They are patriots and they are the very best of us. They did not just defend a building or the people sheltering in it. They put their lives on the line to defend who we are as a country and as a people.
There's stuff in here that I know is untrue. I'm deeply disappointed. I thought I was dealing with professionals, and I am so disappointed. This Trump derangement syndrome takes away your ability to reason, and it takes away your ability to be honest. It's an illness. What they did here is an abomination that will live in history as one of the worst violations of free speech ever in the history of a country that used to value free speech more than any country on earth. We can't say that anymore.
Pope Francis has arrived in Lisbon, where he will attend the 37th World Youth Days, the first since the pandemic. The gathering of young Catholics from around the world was initiated by St. John Paul II in 1986. The last such event was held in Panama in 2019. Pope Francis arrived in Lisbon today for a 5-day visit to Portugal. The Pope promised to continue to stir things up in the Catholic Church as he moves on with reforms and changes that could leave a lasting legacy.
Nel mondo evoluto di oggi,
In today's developed world, paradoxically, the defence of human life, menaced by a creeping utilitarianism that uses life and discards it, has now become a priority. The culture of discarding life. I think of so many unborn children and older persons who are abandoned, of the great challenge of welcoming, protecting, promoting and integrating those who come from afar and knock at our doors, and the isolation felt by so many families that find it hard to bring children into the world and raise them. Here too we might ask, where are you sailing, Europe and the West? Many faithful from all over the world flooded to Lisbon for a chance to see Pope Francis.
Estamos muy emocionados, de hecho ya llevamos
We are very excited. We have already been waiting for an hour for the Pope to arrive. We came from Guatemala after a 12-hour trip to Lisbon to meet the Pope. Personally speaking, I feel very satisfied to have managed to travel all this way and to be able to see His Holiness Pope Francis in person.
My expectation for this is to live with a fulfilled heart, grow in my faith, and just to be open.
The global gathering of young Catholics, known as World Youth Day, is held every 2 or 3 years in a different city. Francis's trip is taking place in the shadow of Portugal's huge clergy sex abuse scandal and criticism of the soaring costs of the event. The 86-year-old Pope is making his first trip since intestinal surgery in June. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.